In its latest regional outlook, the IMF expects Asia and the Pacific to sustain its growth momentum. The projections will remain at a steady 5.4% in 2014 and 5.5% in 2015.
Asia will continue to remain as most dynamic region in the world, even though its performance is not as stellar as it used to be a few years ago. In particular, this year, Asia will be able to capitalize the recovery of advanced economies, and its external performance will improve.
In emerging Asia, actions that have been taken to address current weaknesses are starting to bear fruit.
The downside risk has receded quite significantly. Asia's emerging economies are currently doing much better than other emerging economies in other regions, partly due to their stronger market fundamentals, but also their policy response to the announcement of QE tapering in last May was much swifter and much more sound than policy response of other regions.
But questions remain as to how sustainable this growth will be. In Japan, Abenomics could prove less effective in boosting growth, particularly if structural reforms fall short of expectations. In China, reforms could slow growth, but this could yield positive results since it would put the country on a more sustainable path. What needs to be avoided is a sharp slowdown, because other economies in Asia would then be affected twice as much as the rest of the world. As for external risks, a sudden tightening of global financial conditions could spill over to Asian markets. Some corporates could face acute stress in countries where corporate debt is high and concentrated in weaker firms. Given the domestic and external risks, policymakers in Asia could benefit from continuing recent macroeconomic policy measures and further structural reforms.
This time, our policy recommendation must be more custom-tailored. In China, reining in credit growth and addressing shadow banking problem should be its priority. In Japan, continuing its structural reform is essential to bear fruits of Abenomics. And India and Indonesia, the inflation rate is still high, and the anchoring inflation expectation is a very important policy challenge. Some frontier economies with large budget deficit need to address the fiscal consolidation to stabilize them.
Asian policymakers have been particularly active in deploying so-called macroprudential policies to address systemic financial risks. These tools are neither a silver bullet nor a substitute for monetary or fiscal policy adjustment. But they have had a measurable effect in lowering credit growth, slowing house price increases, and dampening leverage. So they should continue to be used as a complement to macroeconomic policies.
Many Asian economies used fiscal spaces in coping with global financial crisis after 2008, and their internal imbalances has also widened. So in some sense, many Asian countries become relatively a little more vulnerable. So structural reform is necessary, not only to maintain its growth momentum, but also to secure the short-term financial stability. It is not a time for complacence, it's a time for vigilance and reform.